Welcome to the Higher Ed Demand Gen podcast, helping higher education marketing leaders share knowledge about learning, strategies, and tactics that are relevant today. See what you can learn today by listening to one of our episodes.
So welcome to today's panel discussion, FAFSA Frustrations, Success Strategies for Enrollment Marketing. All right, so for today's speakers, I have an amazing guest list of panelists today, right? With quite the lineup. So I'll actually let them introduce themselves, starting from the very left with Adam. Just give me a quick, brief intro and your title and institution, please.
Good morning and afternoon to those on the East Coast. My name is Adam Stoltz. I'm the Director of Enrollment Marketing at the University of Idaho. Just a little bit about me and the job and the university. I'm part of the university's marketing team. I report to our Chief Marketing Officer, and I'm embedded with our Vice Provost for Strategic Enrollment Management. We recently had our largest incoming class in 2022, our second largest in 2023, and on trend for a large one in 2024. University of Idaho is the public land-grant university. It's, fun fact, older than the state of Idaho. We're the #1 best public value university in the West for 4 years in a row, and on our way to R1 status. And we're home to the Vandals. So you had mentioned unique name day. Vandals is the only university with the Vandals. And then you also mentioned salt. I'd have to be remiss not to mention, if you eat McDonald's fries, you're most likely eating University of Idaho fries. They are the Russert Burbanks. And so if you are having McDonald's fries and you're getting your salt intake, which you probably would be at McDonald's, think of University of Idaho and think of today. So thanks for everybody for having us, and looking forward to the conversation.
All right. Well, it's good morning here on my side of the state here, or the states. My name is Bobby Gandu. I'm Assistant Vice President and Director of Admissions at Wichita State University in Kansas in the Central Time Zone. And my portfolio includes undergraduate admissions and also something we call the Shocker Career Accelerator, which is essentially our version of career services and helping our students with help securing internships, post-college job placements, all the things. In terms of Wichita State, in case you don't know about us, we are NCAA Division I in terms of athletics. We are a medium-sized university. This past fall, we enrolled about 17,500 students. We're a university that's been around for 128 years. And this past fall, we were actually fortunate enough to enroll have the largest enrollment in that 128 years. So like Adam mentioned, we're at a good time at Wichita State as well in terms of our enrollment. The last 3 fall semesters have brought us the largest freshman classes in the university's history. We also focus a lot on transfer students too. We've been the #1 transfer destination in the state of Kansas for the last 12 years. So that's a title we work really hard on, and we want to keep making sure that we're serving transfer and adult students really well. And then in the theme of unique, we are the Shockers. And if you look closely at our mascot, you can't probably see him in the background, but it's a piece of wheat, and so, or a bundle of wheat, I should say. So we're the only bundle of wheat mascot, but I would also go further to tell you that we are the only cannibal mascot out there. So if you looked really closely, Woo Shock, our bundle of wheat, is eating a piece of wheat in his mouth on the image and the graphic. So yeah, I challenge anyone to come up with something more unique than the only cannibal mascot out there.
That's awesome. We got some competition. All right, Mary, take us away.
Hi, my name is Beth Marks. I am the Executive Director for Strategic Enrollment Marketing and Campus Visits and Events. I'm at the University of the Pacific, which is a private university on the West Coast in Northern California. Not close enough to the beach, in my opinion, but you can get there in a day. I've worked at regional institutions in Louisiana and in Texas. So shout out to my Louisiana people I saw in the chat and the Texas people as well. And yeah, since we're doing the name thing, I have the, I guess, pleasure of getting 2 first names from my parents as a name, which is always like a challenge for people sometimes. And I have a middle name too. And I also have a sister with 2 first names as well. So fun times.
Great, thank you. All right, Curt.
All right. Yeah, so my name is Curt. I am a client success director with Liaison, as you can see up here in the background there. Liaison is a higher education technology company that helps colleges and universities achieve their enrollment and student success goals. I specifically work with our AI solution called OThought, which you see on screen below my picture there. And OThought is a platform that empowers higher education leaders with predictive and prescriptive analytics to help them make more confident enrollment, retention, and yield decisions to improve their student outcomes. My background spans about 13 years in higher education. My last post on the administrative side of the house was as the Dean of Admissions, at the College of Mount St. Vincent in the Boogie Down Bronx. And I also worked at Hofstra University and Mercy College. And I did all that before relocating my family to St. Augustine, Florida, where I come to you live today. So thanks.
Thanks, Curt. Yeah, and I know last time, so everyone here has been on the Higher Ed podcast that Concept 3D hosts. And, I remember Curt talking specifically around FAFSA stuff, which I don't think we really got to cover in our episode, but I remembered you were passionate about it. So I thought he'd be a perfect guest for this and also bring some insight from more of a vendor perspective. We have no ties with Curt or his company. I just really value his knowledge. And so that's why I brought him on today. We'll jump in here. Can get the slides to change. So just quick goal and agenda for the day. We'll start off with intro, just a quick state of. I know most of you here should be aware of everything going on. And then for the second topic, we'll cover a few poll questions just so we can gauge the audience to see, what the audience thinks. Again, I want this not to just be like a one-way street today. I want this to be a great conversation amongst everyone, including the guests. So we'll pull some questions to the guests, and then we'll go into the 3 discussion questions, and we'll cover any questions at the very end from our guests. All right, and I do have a quick intro slide about Concept 3D. So who is Concept 3D and why are we hosting this webinar today? So at Concept 3D, we help power and partner with over 700 higher ed colleges and universities. And I personally believe in providing value to the higher ed community beyond the scope of just our solutions. So just, a couple numbers here. We power over 4 million users on the platform every year. We support 60 of the top 100 universities. And just a fun fact or anecdotal note is that a lot of our customers really love working with us, after the contract is signed or whatever you want to call it, is because of our dedicated client success team. Our client success team here is to help understand your unique pain points and understanding how we can help in different ways. And we're really here to help you. Each person gets a dedicated person, which I think is really unique to the space as well. So I think that's one of our best selling points. And just a quick overview of the solutions we provide. So we help support marketing, admissions, enrollment teams with a big focus and emphasis on student engagement and digital communications. So whether that's with our events calendar, interactive campus maps, or virtual tours that you can see on the right-hand side there, those are the solutions we provide. It's interactive maps, localist events, which is an event calendar for higher ed, and 360 tours, which is a virtual tour solution for higher ed. So if you want to learn more, there's a question at the very end. So with that, I will move on to the state of. So current state of FAFSA delays. So again, I'm sure everyone here is very aware of what's going on, but FAFSA made changes to their application with the goal of making the form more simple and better, but the rollout has had significant issues and delays. Just some statistics here. At the end of January, when I first read an article on this, nearly 57% of high school seniors had submitted, 57% fewer high school students had submitted a new FAFSA form compared to last year's numbers. And I actually just checked last week from a date of February 23rd, that number has now gone up to 38% fewer. So we're seeing an increase in a trend that you can see on the right-hand side there of the graph, that it's good to see, students filing more FAFSA applications now. Just a couple trends too, and I think Bobby helped point this one, but the goalpost keeps moving, right? The delays keep continuing. We're currently at a 5 to 6 month delay than the usual process. And so I know from both the institutional side and also the student and family side, the trust in the system is just decreasing. And just if you're looking for more statistics, right, and how things are changing, you can definitely go to ncan.org and look for the FAFSA tracker there. I'll actually drop this link if it's still copied in the chat as well after this. And then, there's some statistics around FAFSA competition by state and demographic. Adam, if you want to speak to that at all.
Yeah, I did put it in the chat for everybody. I think it's a really good opportunity to take a look at how dire it really is. Again, 38% down year over year is drastic and very troublesome. And so it does go state by state. And so if you're looking at what your state is and how you can use it for internal conversations, that's what I've been using it as mostly for conversations with, and just making sure people realize how big a deal this is and how dire it is and how important it is to be aware of what's going on and how big a deal it is. So definitely want to share that with you all. If you haven't seen it already, I think it's really good for internal conversations and informing people on your campus.
On a slight positive note, I did talk to some guests on the podcast who are parents of current seniors who are looking to enroll. And they did say that once the glitches and issues were solved out, that the form was in fact easier to fill out for them, having had a couple of their children go to college already. And so that's just a slight positive note that I wanted to end this slide with.
Just if I could just add a couple things right
Yeah.
here. I did have a conversation with Bill DeBon at NCAN about this page. What we're going to try and do also is potentially put in a variance week to week by state to see who is making the biggest increases week to week, who's not so successful, and maybe try and pick out some winners, and maybe we can see if there's something different that is going on in each state. I mean, obviously we have, I think, 14 states now that require the FAFSA to be filled out for graduation, and that is sure to grow, I think, next year with New Jersey and New York following suit. So that's all. That will be, I think, helpful information, or at least interesting at worst case. The other thing with this chart on here, the thing that I've been kind of tracking is just the variance week to week. And we want to make sure that we have these steeper inclines, that would be ideal. And obviously we don't see that here, whereas the week between the 9th and the 16th, we can see an increase or an improvement of 3.5%. And then between the 16th and 23rd, 3.4% between those weeks, and then 3.5% between the 16th and 23rd. So an uptick, if you will, of 0.1%. Talking with Bill, he was saying that if you take the next 17 weeks, that puts us out to June 30th. If we were to recoup 1% between where we are this year and where we sort of were last year, we would eclipse the gap if we just made 1% improvements each week for the next 17 weeks. Now that puts you out to June 30th, right? And so with that kind of goes hand in hand with these delays of May 1. Some are going to the 15th, some are going to the 1st. So like Adam said, it's good to be aware of that and understand that, the progression of FAFSAs being submitted are probably going to be well beyond that May 1st deadline. So those are just some other additional tidbits that I've been picking out with all this data.
That's super insightful. Thank you, Curt. All right, I'm sharing the results here for everyone. So have you adjusted your engagement strategies? So 73% yes, about 10% said no. There's actually a pretty big not sure category with 20%. And not sure is the highest category winner for are you expecting a lower yield due to FAFSA, which is interesting. And it's about 30% for both yes and no. So kind of a mixed bag on projections, it looks like, in terms of yield based on all these delays and issues with FAFSA. So any comments there from our guests here today?
Yeah, I would think you may know from your previous enrollment funnels which groups are likely to file a FAFSA later already, if you have that information available. And that is definitely an area that I would push some resources toward if possible. I think we also talked when we were pre-gaming for this session about our underserved students who are also currently disproportionately affected by the FAFSA, which then in turn may affect your yield because you might have a different type of deposit requirement for this group. Or, like Curt, when you're saying like if we make up 1% every week until the end of June, well, at the beginning of June or May for some areas, school is out. So those resources that those students likely had at that time will be less. So you're fighting enrollment plus melt at the same time, I think. And that's very important to be aware of, and getting some connections going with your CBOs or your other groups in the area that you know of, I think right now would be very critical to assisting in the vital, or not the vital, in the yield that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a good point, and something that I'm taking into account when I talk to my clients about where we expect to land. Because with the OTHOP platform that I use, we have a series of dashboards and predictions that we can put forth for clients so they can try to gain some semblance of where they might land, but understanding that in some states that my clients operate in, they're currently behind very large numbers in submitted FAFSA. And so are we truly going to make up that entire gap? I try to take a pessimistic view just to kind of prepare myself.
Right.
And so what I've been kind of advising certain clients, depending upon their makeup and their geographic location, is I would want to expect probably a 95% or even 90% FAFSA submit rate compared to the year prior, just to be sort of on the safe side. Maybe we can manage some appeals, and then maybe we can talk about some other impact awards as well. And with the platform that we use, we can sort of gauge if we did this dollar amount, what would end up happening on a granular student by student level, or even in an aggregate view as well. But I think you're right. I would expect a lower yield because FAFSA is important to a whole host of students, not just the underserved group, but even, we talk about the middle class, and even upper middle class, who the SAI is intended to kind of bring some more of those students in and look a little bit more favorable to a wider range of students. So if we have less of them, and it's really important that if you did file a FAFSA and you submitted it to my school and now I don't have that, then yeah, I would start to expect a little bit lower yield and lower headcount.
We'll stop sharing the results here and move on to our first discussion question. So how has FAFSA delays affected you and your institution? Someone want to take us away? I'll pick on Adam. How's that? Okay, go, Bobby.
All right, thanks. So, of course, like everyone else, it's impacted us in many ways. From our perspective, typically for an incoming freshman who was applying for admission and scholarships and aid, we would have been able to get them an award package by actually Christmas. That was something historically we really relied upon. There was no commitment to it, of course. It was just we wanted to be early in our package offers. And so now we've pushed back into, we hope, April. As Shira mentioned, the goalposts keep moving in terms of what the feds are going to be able to provide to us. So our hope is April. And so comparing that to December, it just seems like a world apart in terms of the gap in time. So that being said, we've of course spent a lot of time in the last few months just really trying to nurture relationships, keep the interest high as we're awaiting the ability to send out the packages, and then trying to engage in other ways, more virtual events if possible. Our financial aid team has actually done a nice job of trying to descend upon local high schools. We're fortunate we're in an urban area where there's a lot of high schools from which our students hail from. So we've actually gone out and tried to do some workshops at our local high schools to help students and families with the FAFSA. So we've just really tried to keep the conversation going in a multitude of ways. We've stressed some value messages over this month and next month to really underscore, kind of the delay game until the FAFSA, until the award packages hit.
I think to add on to the strategies that Bobby mentioned, and you're talking about value, I think it's also a good opportunity right now if you were able to go out the door early with your scholarship messaging, It's a good time to remind your pool of those scholarships that you've awarded them. And that would work two ways for you. One, it can assist you with yield. And if you also use similar messaging to your confirmed students, then it can help with MELT as well. So emphasizing those scholarship packages and the value that they bring to your overall package that you will be giving soon is an important message to reiterate right now.
I think for me on the vendor side, seeing the client data that comes in, all the changes with processing with certain data points, right? So the FAFSA may have been delayed, that's one thing, but there's also less information coming from the FAFSA as well. So a lot of our clients had to sort of pivot to maintain or retain their ability to analyze their initial merit offers and make sure that they were strong or strong enough, knowing what they knew at the time, to entice students to potentially deposit in a comfortable manner, even in the early going. But then housing, right? We don't get housing from FAFSA anymore. And so just that little administrative change of being able to tag, collect, and track housing data so that the appropriate cost of attendance figures could go on student records. And that is especially difficult for in-state institutions that, have to have the varying cost of attendances related to in-state and out-of-state and housing or off-campus, all that kind of stuff. So that's how it sort of impacted my world by way of the clients. So that those little changes will take time. And if you're not doing it in a proactive manner, then it's kind of tough. I mean, we're here in March. I would hope that everybody's through that phase at this stage. But that I'm sure threw a few people for a loop as well.
Adam, is there anything you wanted to add, or I can move on more to the strategies?
Yeah, I was going to chime in on more on the strategy since I know that's coming up in just a second. So
Cool. Yeah. So I know, we already discussed some strategy and how you're pivoting and changing your strategies. So, but we'll go into a little more detail with our next topic then around, what are some marketing strategies and tactics to help yield up up until drop day. I know that's a word improperly right now, but yeah, what are some of the strategies you're doing to help increase yield to this day?
yeah, some of the things that we would try to be as proactive as possible. Once we knew that the FAFSA was going to be delayed in the fall, we immediately started working with the financial aid office to set up webinars all throughout the fall and winter, and even coming into the spring now. We saw a lot of interest in that. On our Zoom events that we held, we saw more than 175 students and parents attend, which is really, really big for us as far as our population is concerned. We also are partnering with ZME to meet where students are, and so we partnered with them. We had a survey going to go out. We had 3 of 4, 75% of students are very stressed about the FAFSA right now, and so we want to alleviate those concerns. We've also had some nights that we posted live events that are just kind of for fun to kind of, yes, we know the financial aid and FAFSA issues right now are very stressful, but we want you to engage with other students. We want you to engage with current students and things like that. So we've done a lot of that. We also noticed that students are reported 1 of 2 or 50% have not committed or will not commit for a while. And so that's going to delay our yield. And so within what we're doing for yield, we know it's going to be further and further into the summer. We're going to have to keep continuation of pretty constant communication to get that done. And I think that's just one of the big things that we need to think about, is that yield is going to go all throughout the summer and even straight into the fall. And so just to be thinking about that, I think is really, really important. So we had a ZME night for just financial aid office the other night. We had, we had 51 students attend that. I think that's amazing to have that many students to come to an event and just kind of learn about different things, learn about the questions that they want to get answered and things like that. We're also pushing a Vandal Ready Day here in a few weeks. That's going to promote housing. We're already promoting housing really hard. We're way up in housing this year. And so that's exciting for us because we've been pushing housing and pushing that opportunity for students to get their first choice in housing. And again, just to kind of keep things going. We have a large admitted student day coming up as well. So that's super important. we're working on postcards, and so we're promoting our net price calculator as much as possible. We're sending text. We're doing emails, of course, which I think you have a couple examples, Shiro, I think on the next slide.
Yeah, I can show those.
Yeah, so these are just a couple of things that we're doing. We're really promoting that net price calculator to have students kind of have a good understanding, and parents too, have a good understanding of what it might look like as far as affordability, those virtual events that I mentioned. We're also inviting high school counselors to these events. And so there's opportunities for students and families and high school counselors to learn all about the things that are going on and really just try to be communicative as much as possible. The other big thing that we're really doing is making sure it's all over our website. We treated this almost like as like COVID, and we put it on our homepage, is what I mean by that. Was we put it on our homepage saying, FAFSA's delayed, big bold letters. Here's what you need to know. Here's our FAQs. Here's the updates straight from FAFSA. Here's your how to calculate aid and use our net price calculator. So we really went out big and bold and just make sure everybody kind of knew about that. And we're doing a lot of internal communication as well. And so after this webinar today, I'm going to go present to a bunch of the colleges and deans and things like that to talk about these are the things that we're doing with the FAFSA this year and the why, and just kind of what's the background of it. And so I think that's really important to do not only that external communication, but internal too, so people know what's going on and how they can be helpful and how they can answer questions. And if they don't know the answers, where to direct people. So I think that's just super important.
Yeah, and I know one thing you shared with us is you kind of created a hub for all the things that your team is doing to communicate to students internally on the website, social, like email, everything. You consolidated all of that into one page, which I think would be a really good resource internally to show, your execs or your board, like, here's what we're doing to help, mitigate this. And so I thought that was fascinating as well.
Yeah, like I said, that internal communications is just as important as that external, this because people need to know what's going on and how can they help, and really to understand like how big of an issue this is and how important it is to be able to help students and help them where they are.
In terms of like, it sounds like you've really ramped up both virtual and in-person events. Have you added extra in, or have you increased the time? So like, have you delayed some of the events because of the FAFSA issues?
No, we haven't really delayed. We just added more events, and I think partnering more across campus to do so. So, we're going to host a housing live event at some point here soon too, just to help students learn about that. And really is just getting to where the students are and getting where they are, and so they can, be in a comfortable spot to kind of share where their concerns and where they're scared of and things like that. I've definitely seen an uptick on students sharing that with us. And so it's important for us to know that, because then, it's a human to human interaction. And that's kind of why a student would come to the University of Idaho, is because we have that kind of access, and we kind of have that opportunity for students to, if they have an issue or a problem, they just have to ask and go and get some help. And that's what we do. And I think that's kind of the beauty of being in higher education too, is we're trying to help people. We're helping them be educated about what's going on. We want them to learn and ultimately just keep teaching them to do what's best for them. And so again, I think it's just really important that we were able to do that.
Thank you for sharing that. Bobby, Mary, do you want to chime in on, some of the strategies that are working well for you today, or what you've added in?
We added in a SAI calculator as part of our yield strategy. And so we push that out to our admitted students through email. It's also part of a digital, it'll be part of a digital play just to admitted students. We're only doing that to our admitted student population because it is SAI is Student Aid Index. So it's the internal calculator that you can build that would give a estimate of what the student could expect to get based on what we believe the financial aid, the algorithm is that they've used to program these things. So we've used that in terms of working with admitted to yield as a strategy for that. It also would be something that I would and will pass off to admission counselors for students who have done that calculator but haven't deposited yet. It's good to connect the dots between your strategies and pass those data points along and pull out some pieces that you can say, hey team, I think this is a good group to contact or to work with more, because if you are dealing with such a large population or a large admit pool, I would rather do like a more concentrated effort on those that you know are engaged, either highly engaged or middle of the road engaged, than spread your efforts throughout the entire pool.
We've done some of the similar things that Adam and Mary Beth have shared, but one thing I might encourage all of us to be considering are the events that we do have on campus, or virtually for that matter. Are we fully adapting those strategies to meet the status of where we are with FAFSA? So more specifically, we have a yield day coming up, an on-campus event on Saturday, March 23rd, where historically we would have offered one-on-one financial aid conversations with students about their package and any specific questions they had about their situation. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that, just given that we don't know students' packages. So instead, we're pivoting to standing up computer labs to make sure that if students do need help with the FAFSA, we're able to offer that with our professional financial aid staff. So we've really tried to make sure we're looking at the events and opportunities we have with students and making sure that we've thought to adapt the strategy accordingly. Along those lines, not an event, but one thing I tried to work with our housing team on, and I'm hoping I can still convince them, but we have, as everyone does, various housing deadlines coming up. And so I talked with our housing director to see if we could be more forgiving on either deadlines or at least the application fee and the refundability of it, just given the dire circumstances families are in, or maybe perhaps dire is overstating it, but just the unknown circumstances families are in these days. In other words, our normal strategy might have been a deadline of, or excuse me, a application fee of $75. And if they let us know by a certain date, they wouldn't get that refund on the application fee. They would get it on a deposit. Well, I asked our housing director, could we at least consider refunding the application fee in full once students see what their financial aid package is? So then that way they can move forward with the rest of the enrollment funnel and not be bogged down by a fee and being worried about that. So again, didn't make quite the progress that I want, but I think the point I would make is, make sure we're looking at our existing infrastructure or rules, and are those being flexible enough to meet where our students are.
I think, Adam, you implemented something similar around like a FAFSA filer scholarship, right? How's that going?
The FAFSA filer scholarship, keep refreshing me because
I think you had like a April 1st deadline for an automatic like reimbursement, maybe for the filing or a portion of it.
Oh, the incentive, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that. Confused me for a second. Yeah, we offered an opportunity for new first-time students, an incentive of $100 to fill out the FAFSA. And so we just we know that people are going through a lot of pain and all that, not being able to get to the FAFSA and things like that. But we initially, when it first came out, was February 1st. If you did your FAFSA by February 1st, we would provide you a $100 essentially grant to file your FAFSA. We've now extended it to April 1st. And so we just want to encourage students to continue it and give them an additional incentive to do so.
I might just add along those lines, one thing we discovered in the last few months is having a longer FAFSA timeline here actually gave us an opportunity to do better in terms of marketing our existing scholarships that we had. So we adjusted some of our scholarship deadlines. We also stood up. We were just coincidentally fortunate that we had a couple of donors come forward and give us some new scholarship dollars. Whereas in the past, I think standing up a scholarship in March or February would have felt very late, like a scholarship competition with interviews and essays and those kinds of things. I would have told the donor, thank you, but this is really late for us and our students. But because of the timeline of FAFSA and everything being delayed, we actually had a nice long runway to be able to promote those scholarship opportunities. So again, maybe the message or takeaway for us was, making sure that we're exhausting all of the other aid platforms that we have. And in this case, a couple of new scholarships that really got some prime time airtime because we didn't have the benefit of FAFSA process stood up.
Yeah, thanks, Adam, for sharing that. If you go to the chat, you can see what Adam has stood up and his team has set up in terms of the incentive for applications for FAFSA. Curt, are you seeing anything in terms of your clients or from colleagues around anything else, or to add anything to the strategies we've talked about here today?
Yeah, I think I don't know if I'd necessarily classify this as purely marketing, but it does have sort of a marketing slant to it. But what we have seen and what I've seen in the general public is some schools moving pretty early in terms of saying we have our own homegrown form for a FAFSA, so we will put forth and I hope that it's in big bold letters, italicized and in quotes, estimated award package, and that being used to get some semblance of a package in a student's hands. There are some schools that have even gone another step further, saying this is our estimate, but we stand by it. We will be committed to it once all is said and done, that kind of thing. The only thing I see with that is that you've now had students fill out one form and they're going to have to fill out the FAFSA anyway, it seems. So now we're filling out two forms. But I could be wrong there. And then I have a couple clients that have said that they are going to reach out to students and ask if they filled out a FAFSA at this point, if they could submit their SAI, and I think potentially their Pell amount, their Pell estimate as well. And then we're going to put forth an estimated package on that front, just based upon those two data items and any other data that they have internally already as well. What I've seen in terms of what the result is from those is that we've moved a lot of the students that we would be categorizing as, your number one students, or the students that consider you their number one choice. But the students that are saying, or that we list as potentially a second decile or a third decile, or even further down the rungs, or those students that would say like, well, you're not my top choice, but you're in my top three, that kind of thing. Those students are still waiting. And the benefit is that you are sort of first to market with that information in their hands, and then they can use it as a benchmarking, if you will. And if they are really savvy shoppers, as we have come to know each year as we progress, they're getting better and better, and they're being coached more and more as well. But at least you can start to provide that back and forth. Right. And if you're getting those touch points, that in and of itself is a good thing, because you're getting that interaction instead of being ghosted. Right. And then the third thing, which is not really marketing, it was really in and of itself a financial aid strategy. I do have one client that accepts sort of both FAFSA and CSS profile. And in the intermittent time where FAFSA was being delayed and they weren't receiving and were not receiving all that information, they started to go after students and say, why don't you submit the CSS profile first? So if they positioned everybody to go that way, and they did get a pretty good response. There are small institutions in the Northeast, but once we started to see that information come into their platform, their prediction in terms of final enrollment and their forecasted enrollment, because there is subtle nuances that I won't go into here, but those did jump considerably. And what it also did was allow the platform then to assess those students in a fuller picture and really put forth what the next recommendation is in terms of how to target that student to enrollment. And so the fact that a lot of those students shifted from a cost of attendance met by gift aid is the most important factor to this student, it shifted to the visits. And in some cases, the visit was already number one, but it now is even truer because we already had the financial aid information. And now it's really giving our clients the real insight to start to tailor their outreach to their campus visitation in the next couple months, so they can start to put the financial piece in the rearview mirror, if you will. So that's sort of what I've been seeing across the landscape.
That's fascinating. Thank you. And I know we had a pretty good question from one of our guests, Michelle. So she was wondering around what the turnouts for all these new events or events in general have been. Are students still feeling the fatigue effect from virtual engagement because of all the stuff, the virtual events from COVID? I know, Adam, you helped answer this already, but I thought this was a great discussion topic. Are you seeing fatigue from, virtual events? Or are you actually seeing an uptick?
Yeah, just kind of reiterate what I said in chat. What I'm finding is that students and families are really appreciate that we're doing We have other Zoom events, like maybe within colleges or other areas that aren't as well attended. And I think because the FAFSA and all the challenges surrounding it, students and families want information and they just want as much help and reassurance as much as possible. And so we haven't seen a downtick in those type of events. I think Zoom in general, yeah, I think we are seeing other events maybe. But if a student is really interested in the content or the parents are interested in the content, they are definitely attending still.
Great to hear. Are you seeing similar results, Mary and Bobby? Mary Beth and
Yeah,
Bobby?
I would agree with Adam. If it's related to money, then for sure the attendance rate is high. If it's something else, then I would agree. I would say Zoom fatigue is still kind of a thing. I would our in-person events are actually, our yield rate is very high for those. So I think the pivot back from Zoom back to the in-person has been very beneficial, that people want to consume this information in person now versus Zoom. But Zoom is still an option for those who can't make it. And I think it's important to keep that piece of that in your strategies for outreach, but also be mindful of not only the people that you are inviting and their Zoom fatigue, but the people that are hosting these events and their Zoom fatigue. It's baked into our job descriptions and admissions and enrollment that you will be doing these events. When you're looking to your other partners across campus, it can be disheartening to see, try to host an event and have one or two people come on or not have any engagement. And I would recommend looking at the turnout on those events and either lessening them or pivoting to another way to send off that information to those groups.
I would have a question also, just real quick, in that the difference between visitation in the fall this year versus the spring upcoming, right? Because what I have heard early on in this cycle, even in light of the expected FAFSA delays that were still on the horizon, was that a lot of students, particularly those that are coming from underrepresented groups, that they were holding off on visitation a little bit in the fall to really try to get a fuller picture if they could even afford it. So instead of wasting their times, say, they would hold off. Now the time has come. It's like, well, I'm not going to get that information, or I'm going to get it from very few institutions. So I think that may be kind of forcing the hand now, potentially. So that would be interesting to see in data or even in your everyday life, if you have any comments to that.
I would agree with you, Curt, on that, what your clients are seeing. Not specifically here, but at other institutions that I worked at. The visit happened more after a student was admitted. So they had that sense of like, okay, I cleared this hurdle. Now I'm going to make the commitment to come visit. Our fall events, like our fall open houses, were still highly well attended, but we didn't drill down into, if they were more of students underrepresented or how they related to that. Admitted student day is the same. We're still having actually bigger numbers than we've had before. But again, I think that the university has bought into me. I've been admitted. Now I want to come see what's in store for me, whether or not they have the package part. I think that's going to definitely will play out a little bit later when we get into as people are sending off their packages. Then I think it will be a race to see who can get that information out there quickest, for sure.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I've heard. I'm actually talking about this topic on the podcast I host, Higher Ed Demand Gen. If you didn't know, with Seth Odell from Kanahoma, we're going to be talking about how the in-person campus visit has shifted and changed since COVID, basically. And this is very fascinating. So I'm excited to cover this in more detail in probably 2 or 3 weeks. So keep an eye out for this episode. All right, I'll move us on to another poll question here. This is a little more theoretical, but hopefully it's very engaging. Is how do the FAFSA delays compound or affect the future of higher ed enrollment? So this is definitely an opinion piece, right? But do you think it's a net positive, a net negative, or you're not quite sure yet. And it can be however you want to interpret the question, right? Whether it's short term, long term, hundreds of years from now, probably a little out of our scope, but what do you think? So a majority are answering net negative at the moment. I'll end the poll and share the results with you. I think we have enough to understand a grasp of what people are thinking. But yeah, majority are definitely feeling the pains, I think, short term right now, net negative, right? A lot of people are just not sure. So I think, Curt, I see you smiling there. So I think this is no news to you. And one person did say net positive. So I like that someone's out there, glass half full.
That's what I was smiling about. Who's the leader of that tribe right now? And how do I
Right.
get behind them?
Great. Well, with that, I don't know if you want to let's talk about this a little bit, right? Do Adam, Bobby, Mary, Beth, or Curt have opinions on what the future outlook looks like in your opinion?
Yeah, I actually go into that mindset of I think it's going to be positive in the end. This year, I think it's going to be very much a struggle. But I think even going back to COVID, what happened during COVID, the silver lining was people on campus had to collaborate more. And I think that's what's going to happen with this as well, where people have to help each other. There's got to be a lot more collaborative efforts across the entire campus to help the student. And I think in COVID, that was, to me, that was the biggest silver lining of it all, is where we were here for the student, and that's why we're here. That's why we exist as an institution, as a university. And I think, again, what I've seen just in the FAFSA delays and with COVID was we had to go collaborate more, and people had to collaborate with us, and vice versa, on telling the story, getting the messages out, and things of that nature. And I think as people see that the more you collaborate, the more successful you are, the all tides raise all boats mentality, that's where the positive outcome is going to come out of this. It might be really difficult in the short term as we're all bailing water out and trying to poke holes to make sure the boat doesn't sink. But in the end, what's going to happen is the FAFSA should be easier for students once it's all worked out. And in addition to that, the collaborativeness of campus is going to go even higher. That's my opinion.
So this is someone coming from someone who hasn't worked internally in higher ed. Like, do you think there's a future state where things like commitment day just go away and it just turns into rolling enrollment for every institution, or like these sorts of deadlines that were made and have been institutionalized for hundreds of years are going to change now because of this? Like,
Well, my opinion is that May 1 is a benchmark that we as institutions have put in to have at least something to tell us, like, here's where you're at when you're getting into fall. But when we mentioned COVID, we talked about COVID changing things. I think that this process was delayed during COVID and will continue to be delayed. You can even see it as early as your applicant funnel, when people start, applications have come in a little bit later. Things are delayed more. People are shopping around more over the summer. So for me, having worked at institutions where we were on a rolling admission basis and we worked for that class up until the last day to drop a class, as you mentioned, May 1 was just another day. It wasn't as critical in planning how fall would turn out as other events were. So I think for those of us who are able to use May 1 as a benchmark, it's a luxury, but I don't expect it to be the standard forever.
well, great. Well, I think I'll just wrap things up here on time. Thank you so much again, Mary Beth, Adam, Bobby, and Curt, for joining, and thanks for all of our attendees for joining the session today. We hope it was insightful and informative for you, and we hope it sparks some new brain cells for ideas from a marketing and enrollment strategy perspective. So thank you again for joining, and look out for our next webinars. Thank you.